The Broncos just got some either really good news or some really bad news, depending on where you stand with Russell Wilson. Ian Rappaport sharing this morning that the Steelers announced that Justin Fields will likely be the Steelers starter in Week 2 against the Broncos in what was supposed to be a revenge matchup and a drama-filled game, Russ versus Sean Payton. So, we're going to say whether or not I think it's good or bad news, but really quickly, a request for anyone that is not subscribed to the channel to go ahead and do so. I was given the green light from my bosses to get studio space to do a watch party for this game if we hit 25,000 subscribers. We're 34 subs away, so if you are not subscribed, hop aboard and then come watch along with us on Sunday. But honestly, I am so upset that Russ is not playing. I am not a big reality TV person, but this was my reality TV binge I was looking forward to. Russ returning to Denver against Sean Payton, the team that decided you are so bad, we are willing to pay another team $34 million just to take you off our hands. We're willing to pick up an $85 million dead cap hit just to get you off our books. How could you not be excited for that matchup? Just from a general drama-filled entertainment viewpoint, Russ returning to Denver from the moment the schedule dropped was going to be must-see TV. And now we are robbed. Cowards in Pittsburgh. I don't know who to blame. I'm not even sure how legit this injury is because Russ said before the Falcons Week 1 game that he'd be good to go. And then morning of, no longer good to go. And you'd think, well, if he was so close to playing Week 1, surely a week later he'd be pretty good to play. I mean, they announced on Tuesday that he's not going to play most likely. So there's something fishy going on in Pittsburgh, but that's for Steelers fans to talk about. From our vantage point, no Russ is either a good or a bad thing, like I said at the beginning. If you think Russ is a washed-up quarterback, then this is a bad thing because Justin Fields would be better. If you think Russ still has some juice left in the tank, then this is a good thing because you are going up against the lesser of the two quarterbacks. Personally, I think this is a bad thing for the Broncos. I feel like Sean Payton had a plan for Russell Wilson. He saw firsthand what Russ's strengths and weaknesses were. Russ went up against not the entire 11 starters for the Broncos defense in practice last year that there are starting this year, but he went up against a lot of guys that are starting up for the Broncos defense in practice for the last 2 seasons. So they became very familiar with Russ's tendencies and his habits and the good and the bad ones. And so I felt like that would play more into the Broncos' favor than Russ's favor going up against his former team. Justin Fields, though, was one-dimensional in Week 1. So there is, I wouldn't say some good news out of this because he did win in Week 1 against a pretty good Falcons defense with Justin Simmons, Matthew Judon, Jesse Bates, A.J. Terrell. Like, there's some really good, talented players on that defense. And while they never scored a touchdown, he did get them into field goal range, and they converted 6 for 6. But Justin Fields, like I said, one-dimensional in Week 1. Look what Warren Sharp shared. This is his throwing chart from Week 1. It kind of looks like the K-zone of an MLB broadcast with the world's worst pitcher. Nothing over the middle whatsoever. I mean, he's allergic to the hash marks. So for Sean Payton and Vance Joseph, you look at this and you should come up with a pretty good game plan as to what Justin Fields and the Steelers want to do offensively, which is dink and dunk and run the football. And once that gets out of the bag, then it just becomes a matter of can you stop it, right? Half of the battle is figuring out what the opposing offense wants to do. The other half of the battle is can you stop it? You already know before Sunday what Pittsburgh wants to do. It's all right there. It is short passes, nothing more. I mean, he had 2 completions over 10 yards, nothing over the middle. It just comes down to execution. Can you defend? Can you stop what they want to do? I mean, in the Week 1 opener, 156 passing yards, 57 rushing yards for Fields. Pretty good completion percentage for a guy that has had some accuracy issues. But again, when everything's very short, I hope you do complete those passes. So ultimately, I think for Denver, this will come down to one thing and one thing only. Stopping the run. If they can stop the run for Pittsburgh, I don't see a way the Steelers win this game other than a defensive score, which I wouldn't put past them. TJ Watt's an absolute menace. Or like we saw in week 1, a handful of field goals on maybe some drives that start near midfield because of an offensive turnover or a good punt return. Like, this will be a game that if the Steelers win, it's going to be because they either get the ground game going, their defense carries them, which they've done before, or special teams helps them win in the field position battle. In week 1 last week, the Pittsburgh Steelers had Najee Harris lead the group with 20 carries for 70 yards. Fields, 14 carries, 57 yards. Cordell Patterson, 4 carries, 13 yards. They had over 100 rushing yards as a team. It was the lifeblood of their offense. So without Russell Wilson out there, I don't expect to see a lot of downfield passing. Now, maybe after 1 week of starting with Fields, Arthur Smith, their offensive coordinator, will instill more trust in Fields to throw the ball and push the envelope a little bit more. But my gut tells me they had a recipe for week 1, and it worked. I mean, it wasn't the greatest recipe offensively. 6 field goals, and a lot of those were really long 50-yarders that I don't think you can rely on your kicker making every single week. But they definitely had a plan, and they executed it, and they won this game. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, we're going to run through 3 things the Broncos must do in week 2 to start the year off 1-1. But first, I do want to tell everyone watching about our great sponsor today, which is Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I really like about Game Time is their all-in pricing option. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off your first purchase. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So first to do for Sean Payton going into week 2. Game plan for TJ Watt. I don't think the Falcons did an adequate job of this in week 1, and TJ Watt was a huge reason why the Steelers won. Him and the kicker, I would say. Those were the 2 keys to victory for the Yinzers. Last week, 4 tackles, a sack, a fumble recovery. He honestly could have had more sacks and more forced fumbles and more fumble recoveries if not for some defensive penalties on the same play. But TJ Watt is absolutely a menace. You have to game plan for him. And the game plan cannot be, we're going to stick Mike McGlinchey on him all game long and hope for the best. McGlinchey's a great tackle. TJ Watt is a great pass rusher. You have to throw more at him. And it's not just chipping him. I think that's a casual, surface-level response for game planning for guys like TJ Watt or just any great pass rusher. Chipping alone is not like, well, if we chip him, we'll win the game. No, you've got to move the pocket, in my opinion, right? You've got to get the ball and the quarterback away from TJ Watt. Not just go, hey, Adam, before you go out on your run, would you mind putting a little left-handed jab into 90 shoulder pad and we'll hope it works out well for us after that? No, move the pocket, play action, run the ball at him, stuff like that. It can't just be a one-size-fits-all or a one-step approach. So game plan for TJ Watt. Do not just send Mike McGlinchey out there with, hey, mano-a-mano for the next 60 minutes, and let's hope it works out. Next thing up, establish the run. Last week, I'm not sure what Sean Payton wanted to do going into the game, but it clearly got away from him because I don't envision that he wanted to have Bo Nix throw the ball 42 times in his NFL debut. So they got to start getting things going on the ground. And that means Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams, who were completely stuffed by that Seattle Seahawks front four. Now, the bad news is it's not going to be much easier against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That steel curtain is one of the best defenses in football, and it's not going to be a simple treadmill outing for this ground game. But I don't think having Bo Nix drop back 42 times with TJ Watt barreling down towards him is a better option. So the Steelers pass rush and the Steelers defense is absolutely one of the strengths of this team. And so you have to try and find a balance between running the football and establishing the run. But establishing the run is a much better option than what we saw on Sunday, which is, hey, Bo, we're going to have you throw it 42 times. Against Watt and the Steelers, that could be a lot worse than what Seattle picked off on him. Third and final thing to do, incorporate some deep passing. I felt like Bo Nix last week did not have a receiver group that was designed to push the ball down the field. Sutton, Reynolds, Vele, those are some big body dudes, right? Those are guys who like contested catches. Can we see a little bit of Marvin Mims? And maybe we're not seeing Marvin Mims because the coaching staff feels like he is just unplayable or he's just one-dimensional, because what we don't want to see is every time Marvin Mims steps on the field, the defense knows, well, that's a one-trick pony. He runs one route. It's a go route, and we know they're not going to run the football because they don't trust him to run block. So I can understand if that's the hesitancy to not put Mims on the field if all he does is run straight and run fast. But we got to get some downfield passing going, like successful downfield passing. Here's Bo Nix passing chart from the Seahawks game. I mean, look at the green dots. I see 2 green dots beyond 10 yards. That's just not going to cut it. I mean, this is what we saw a lot of in college for Bo Nix. And it worked in college because college DBs are not very good at tackling. They're just not. But in the NFL, they sure are. So for Bo Nix to go out there and dink and dunk his way through 17 games, not going to work. Like, you can get by to that degree to a degree, but you also at some point have to make the defense respect your deep ball, right? Make the safeties back up a little bit and not start crowding the box. Because as the game progresses and these guys are on the sideline looking at their tablets, if they notice no receiver is going on a route farther than 10 to 15 yards, they're not going to stand back deep anymore. The safeties are not going to line up 20 yards off the line of scrimmage. They're going to line up 15 yards off the line of scrimmage. And now all these windows get so much tighter because you got a linebacker, a corner, and a safety who are all within 7 yards of each other. You got to get some downfield passing going. You got to incorporate Marvin Mims just to get the defense to stretch out and thin itself out a little bit. Because after 4 quarters, if all you see is dink and dunk passing, you're going to see a defense that lines up within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage every single play, which will make running the ball even more difficult. I mean, I'm not asking for them to drop back and just start slinging it deep just for the sake of doing so. There's got to be some level of strategy behind it and a game plan, but I don't think the Steelers defense is going to get bent over because of a couple of dink and dunk passing. We got to get some downfield throwing incorporated. So who do you got in week 2? Are the Broncos going to start off 0-2 for a second straight year under Sean Payton, or are the Steelers going to fall to 1-1? Let me know in the comment section below who you got. I took the Broncos last week. When deep down, I kind of want to take the Seahawks, but no one likes the guy in week 1 who says that your team's going to lose. I'm going to go with the Broncos this week, but I'm not as confident as I was last week, which even last week I wasn't super duper confident with the rookie quarterback starting on the road, but I kind of got sucked up in all the Bo Nix Kool-Aid, and now we've had a week to kind of, reset a little bit now that the preseason is very much behind us. That will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to like the video and subscribe, and I'll catch up with you all tomorrow.